This is Scarloa, just 12 years old, yet she had already endured more pain than most people will in a lifetime. She was born on the unforgiving streets of Lagos, raised by a mentally ill mother who wandered between shadows and silence. There was no father, no roof, no last name anyone cared to remember. She belonged to no one, and no one ever fought for her. Scarloa only got to taste education for 2 short years. A kind stranger had once paid her school fees, but then vanished without a trace. After that, the dream of learning vanished with her. Alone, abandoned, unseen, but beneath the dirt and despair lived a mind sharper than most could imagine. Then one day the world shifted. She met Jessica. Jessica had everything Scarloa didn't. She was the daughter of a billionaire, attending the most elite school money could buy. But beneath her polished uniform and fancy notebooks, Jessica was failing, struggling to learn. The barefoot girl who smelled of smoke and street dust, who became her secret teacher. They studied under a mango tree, away from judging eyes. Until one day, Jessica's father found out, and what the powerful man did next. You won't believe it, so grab your popcorn, lean in, prepare for a story that will move your heart in ways you never expected. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button to support more powerful stories like this one. Dirty thing, I said, leave here. A thick glob of spit landed near Scarloa's bare feet. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She was used to it. Insults didn't cut anymore. Not when you'd heard them your whole life. The market woman's voice pierced the air again, loud and sharp. Is this a rubbish dump? You and that mad woman better shift before I pour hot water on you. Scarloa simply held her ground, tightening her grip on her mother Abini, who sat beside the gutter in silence, her bare feet crusted with mud. Abini was mumbling softly, drawing invisible shapes in the dust with a trembling finger. Her faded wrapper had slipped down her shoulders, revealing old scars and fresh grime, but she didn't notice. She was far away, in some other world only. She could see. People walked past, like always. Some slowed, some stared. One woman paused, shook her head and kept walking. No one helped. No one ever helped. At 12, Scarloa was already ancient in spirit. Her eyes carried a sorrow too heavy for her small frame. She didn't cry anymore when they hurled names at her. Daughter of a madwoman, gutter rat, cursed child. She had heard them all, and now she simply stood still, silent, unshaken, waiting for whatever came next. But what hurt the most wasn't the insults. It was the pity, the kind, that came with a sigh, a headshake, and then nothing. No hand, no help, just silence wrapped in judgment. Scarloa often wondered what her mother had once been like. She liked to imagine her beautiful, glowing with joy, maybe even wearing a bright gel like the women she saw in the markets. On rare days, when the fog in Abini's mind would clear, she would hum soft Yoruba lullabies and call her. Those moments felt like magic, like shooting stars, fleeting beautiful, gone too soon. Most days, however, Abini was lost in a different world, a world full of echoes, monsters, and memories that didn't exist. She'd scream at her own reflection in puddles, throw stones at invisible enemies, and run from shadows no one else could see. As for Scarloa's father, he was a mystery, a blank space in her life. Mommy. Who's my daddy? She'd once asked, her voice barely a whisper. Abini had looked at her. With hollow eyes, her voice distant, dreamlike. I don't know. Maybe the rain? Yes, the rain. That was it. That was the whole story. Their home was a broken-down kiosk near mile 12. If it rained, they were soaked. The sun scorched, they roasted under its weight. Her mattress was a sagging carton, their blanket. Silence and wind. Dreaming was a luxury Scarloa had long forgotten. Survival, that was her only language now. Each morning followed the same script. Abini would wake screaming, clawing at air only she could feel. Lo would wrap her arms around her, whispering softly, "It's me, Mommy. It's just me." She would clean her sometimes with a rag, sometimes with water stolen from a cracked gutter pipe, and gently guide her mother to their usual spot beside the busy street. That was their life. Her mother begged, "Squall Ola." Sat, watched, waited. Sometimes people dropped coins. Most times they dropped curses. "Mommy, don't talk today, okay?" Scarloa whispered that morning, adjusting her mother's wrapper to cover the tear in the fabric. "Just sit. Just stay quiet, please." But madness doesn't listen to whispers. Suddenly Abini stood up and screamed at a passing car. "Give me my wings. I left them in your boot." The driver honked, startled, swerving as he passed. Scarloa's face flushed with embarrassment. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She turned and locked eyes with a schoolgirl standing across the street, neatly dressed, clean shoes, holding a lunchbox. The girl stared. just for a second, then leaned toward her friend, whispered something and laughed. And in that moment, Skalella felt something in her heart tighten. Not because the girl laughed, but because for one brief second, she wanted to be her. Skalella glanced down at her legs, thin, dusty, bruised from the street. Her toenails were cracked, her fingers dry and calloused. Her stomach grumbled, but she paid it no mind. Hunger was no longer a visitor. It was family. Still, even beneath all that, the dirt, the ache, shame, she dreamed of sitting in a real classroom, raising her hand with confidence, of writing neatly in clean notebooks, not on scraps of cardboard or rain-soaked paper, of wearing a school uniform even if secondhand, and reading books with pages that hadn't been torn or stained. More than anything, she dreamed of someone saying her name, with kindness, without disgust, without scorn. But who would care for the daughter of a madwoman, who would send to school a girl whose mother shouted at birds, thinking they were demons? No one. And yet, she hoped every day as children walked past polished shoes, packed lunches, braided hair glinting in the sun, Skalella would whisper to herself, "One day, I'll be one of them. One day, I'll sit in a classroom. One day, Mommy will get better and remember my name." That morning she reached into her plastic bag, the one she kept hidden beneath her skirt. Inside were their entire earnings, one crumpled N10 note and 3 coins. That was all. Just then, a hawker yelled from behind her stall, "Thunderfire poverty." The words echoed like thunder. Skalella didn't look up. She didn't flinch. She just hugged her mother a little tighter and whispered softly, "Amen." It all began with a plate of jollof rice. That afternoon, the sun was cruel, and hunger clawed at Skalella from the inside. She crouched beside her mother near the busy Oshodi market, her arms wrapped around her knees, a beanie. Sat still, caught in one of her quiet storms. Rocking slowly, eyes blank, lips twitching, as she sang to something no one else could hear. Then, Skalella noticed her. Across the road stood a woman behind a small food stand. A table, 2 coolers, plastic chairs, and the warm aroma of jollof rice and pepper soup filled the air. She was light-skinned, full-figured, wearing a faded Angora gown, but it was her eyes that caught Skalella off guard. They didn't carry pity, they carried interest, a quiet curiosity, something deeper. Skalella quickly looked away, shamed. She hated that feeling like a zoo animal behind invisible bars, being watched by someone who didn't belong in her world. A few minutes passed. Then, footsteps. The woman crossed the road and stopped right in front of her. "What's your name?" she asked, her voice soft, careful, like someone trying not to scare a wounded bird. Skalella didn't lift her eyes. She stared at her own bare feet, then whispered, "Shola." The woman glanced at the figure next to her, mumbling to an empty bottle like it was a baby. "And your mother?" she asked gently. Skalella simply pointed. That was the beginning of everything. The woman's eyes softened as she looked at the broken figure beside the girl. "She's sick, isn't she?" Skalella gave a quiet nod. "What did you eat today?" She didn't answer. The woman didn't push. Instead, she reached into a plastic bag and pulled out a small, warm, covered takeaway plate. "Here, eat." Skalella froze. She had learned long ago food from strangers often came with a price she was never willing to pay. But the woman smiled gently, sensing her fear. "Don't worry. I'm not like the others." That was the first time Skalella met Auntie Linda. She peeled back the lid. The smell hit first, sweet, spicy jollof rice, with a soft piece of meat resting on top. Meat. Real meat. Skalella hadn't tasted it in months. She devoured it. That same evening, Auntie Linda returned, this time with bottled water and a bar of soap. She knelt beside the girl and handed her a clean rag. "What's your story, child?" she asked, as she helped her wash her hands. And for the first time in a long time, Skalella spoke. She told her everything. The madness, the market life, the school she once peeped into through tea. Late at night, long after the world forgot her, Skalella whispered math questions to herself in the dark. "What's 6 divided by 3? She paused, then smiled faintly. 2. No matter how much life tried to crush her, her mind remained clear, sharp, steady, unshaken. Her body ached. Her stomach groaned, but her spirit, still burning, and that flame tiny but alive, was enough. By morning, she was back on the road, tray full, feet raw, heart steady. Yes, she was selling water, but inside she was chasing something more, not just survival, a shot at something greater, a whisper of hope that maybe, just maybe, the daughter of a madwoman didn't have to die on the roadside. She wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Queen's Crest International School. Its gates were tall, majestic, polished like mirrors. Uniformed guards stood watch. Radios clipped to their belts, eyes sharp. Children arrived in tinted SUVs, air-conditioned. Spotless, elegant, drivers in white gloves opened the doors, everything. Shimmered, the walls, the glass, even the flower beds. This wasn't a school, it was a palace for the elite. And Skalala. She didn't belong, barefoot, dust-covered, her tray of water hidden in a bush 2 streets away. But she had seen the school before from far off, and today, something in her whispered, "Go closer, no money, no plan. No permission, just a fire in her eyes and a hunger no bread could satisfy." She crept along the side, where weeds grew tall and forgotten things gathered there. Near a drainage pipe, a small gap in the wall. She slipped through, ignoring the thorns scratching her arms. Her heart pounded like a war drum. She expected to be caught. Expected to hear shouting, but no one noticed her. She walked low along the flower beds, crouched behind trees, ducked any time a teacher or student passed, and then she saw it. A classroom window cracked open, near the back field, half hidden by a mango tree. She slid to the ground, pulled a stub of a pencil from her skirt pocket, and reached for her writing surface, a torn scrap of nylon inside. A lesson was happening. English. She copied every word she could hear, mouthing the difficult ones quietly. Sounding them out, .com-pre-hen-sion. She was halfway through a sentence when you're the girl they always chase away, aren't you? Skalala froze. She turned slowly. Standing behind her was a girl her age, hair braided into neat cornrows. Sparkling name tag pinned proudly on her chest, a uniform without a single stain. Jessica Skalala stood up quickly. Backing away. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean any harm. I was only listening." Jessica tilted her head, her voice calm. "Why?" Skalala blinked. "Because I want to learn." A silence passed between them. Jessica stepped. "Closer? You don't go to school?" Skalala shook her head. "My mother's sick. We live on the street." Jessica looked down. Her shoes didn't even crunch the grass. For a second, the polished, perfect schoolgirl looked almost fragile. "People laugh at me too," she said softly. "They say I'm dumb, that my dad pays the school to keep passing me." Skalala's eyes widened. "You?" Jessica nodded slowly. "I don't understand anything they teach. I sit in class, and it just floats past me." 2 girls, one outside the classroom window, the other inside the polished halls, stood in a patch of sunlight, both aching in different ways. Both misunderstood. Both outsiders, just from opposite sides of a gate. Jessica looked down at the grass, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everyone's always ahead of me, so I sit out here during lunch, alone." A silence stretched between them, not awkward, just heavy. Honest. Then Jessica smiled gently. "Do you want to sit?" Skalala hesitated, unsure if it was a joke or a trap. Jessica sat first and patted the soft patch of ground beside her, cautiously. Skalala lowered herself to the grass. Jessica reached into her school bag and pulled out a thick textbook. "Can you teach me this? I don't get it." Skalala leaned closer, squinting at the page. Fractions. Messy ones. The kind most kids hated, but to her, numbers were friends, not enemies. She studied it for a moment, then gently took the book. "Okay, look. When you see 1/2 and p, they don't have the same bottom number. That's the denominator. So to add them, you first." Jessica's eyes widened as she listened, truly listened in minutes. Something magical happened. The confusion on her face melted. She scribbled on the page, paused, then gasped. "Wait. I get it. I finally understand." Skalala gave a small, shy smile. "You're not dumb." Jessica grinned back, eyes glowing. "And you're not just smart, you're amazing." They stayed there for over an hour, crouched beneath the mango tree like it was their own private classroom, their secret world. When the bell rang, Jessica stood. "Will you come tomorrow?" Skalala looked down. "They'll chase me. I don't belong here." Jessica narrowed her eyes. "Wait here." And just like that, she ran. Minutes later, she returned, not alone. A security guard followed behind. Radio clipped to his belt, face puzzled. "This is my friend," Jessica said, voice firm as stone. "Her name is Skalala. She'll be here tomorrow during lunch. Let her in." The guard hesitated. "But she's not. She's my friend," Jessica interrupted. "And my dad owns this school. You have a problem with that?" The man blinked, swallowed hard, and nodded. Jessica turned to Skala, smiling like the sun. "Same time tomorrow?" Skala could only nod, barely believing what had just happened. As she left the school that day, she didn't feel fear. She didn't feel shame. She felt something new, something unfamiliar. Hope. That night, her mother sang to a broken bottle and danced barefoot in the dark. But Skalala. She sat by the gutter, looked up at the stars, and whispered, "God, I met someone today. She didn't call me dirty. She didn't call me mad. She listened. Please, let me see her again. This not be a dream. And that night, for the first time in a very, very long time, she fell asleep smiling. They met under that mango tree every single day. Same time, same spot. One in a torn brown gown with bare feet and a plastic bag full of torn paper. The other in an ironed uniform with polished shoes and a lunch packed by a cook. Two girls from two different worlds. But when they sat together, nothing else mattered. Their friendship grew like a small flame in the cold. Jessica laughed more now. She listened in class. Not because the teachers made more sense, but because Skalala did. Don't read it like a robot, Skalala would whisper. Read it like you're talking to your best friend. Jessica would try, stumble, then try again, and when she got it, Skalala clapped, loudly like Jessica had just won a gold medal. Jessica's eyes sparkled. One day, she looked at her and said softly, "No one's ever clapped for me before." Skalala blinked. "But you're rich. Don't people celebrate you?" Jessica shook her head slowly, eyes on the ground. "Only when I dress well, or when my dad throws his big parties." She looked up. "It's not when I finally get the answers right. Not when I stop tripping over every word." Skalala reached out and took her hand. "You deserve more than applause for how you look, Jessica." It was the first time she'd ever said something like that. Jessica didn't respond with words. She just squeezed her hand tighter, like she'd found something she'd been looking for all along. One warm afternoon, as they shared Jessica's spaghetti and fried plantain under the mango tree, Jessica turned to her and asked, "Do you have a best friend?" Skalala didn't hesitate. "You." Jessica smiled wide. "Me too." Then the smile faded just slightly. "Shola, what if my daddy finds out?" Her voice dropped. "What if he says we can't be friends?" Skalala froze. "Spoon hovering over the lunchbox?" "Then you'll forget me," she said quietly. "That's how it works." "No," Jessica snapped, more forcefully than she intended. "I won't." Skalala looked down, voice barely audible. "He'll be angry. Jess, rich people don't want their daughters sitting with girls like me. My mom begs by the roadside. Some people say she's cursed, and they think I am too." Jessica was silent for a long moment. Then she leaned in and whispered, "You're not cursed." She smiled gently. "You're magic." Skalala blinked, startled. "Magic," nodded firmly. "Yes. Who else can teach better than all my teachers? Who else can make me laugh when I want to cry? Who else can make this place, this rich cold school, feel like home?" Her throat burned with unshed tears. She blinked fast, refusing to let them fall. But they shimmered. Jessica leaned closer. "You're not cursed, Shola. You're magic." From then on, they shared more than lunch and lessons. Jessica started sneaking little gifts in her backpack. A hairbrush, small blue notepad. Once even a pair of plastic slippers. Skalala rarely wore them, though. She was scared someone would snatch them when she walked home. In return, Skalala gave what she had. Stow.